Welcome to the second part of our journey through The Shining. If you haven't caught the first part, where we explore how Tony is Danny's future self, we highly recommend watching it to fully comprehend the depth of our discussion. When the hotel manager, Mr. Stuart Ullman, is giving the tour and showing off the location of the hotel snowmobile, he reveals the bloody history of how the Overlook was built over an ancient Indian burial ground, and how the construction crew fought off various Indian attacks. It does not state how many died during these attacks, but if we go from the belief that the Overlook is alive, we can definitely say that if its construction represents its birth, then the Overlook was born in blood. The book and the movie are two very different stories, with the book having no references to the Native Americans or burial grounds. So it's fair to believe that the director of The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, felt passionately about this subject and wished to make this part of the narrative. As the story progresses, the Indian subtext is still notable. Outside of the manager's office, we see a piece of Indian artwork hanging on the wall. In the hotel lobby, where Jack is throwing a tennis ball, we see a sand painting of Native Americans dressed ceremonially, who appear to be dancing. The final notable reference is in the pantry, where we see a tin of camulet baking powder with an Indian's head. These subtle references throughout the movie are constantly reminding us of a darker part of Western history. We are not stating that the Overlook's evil's origin is that of the Native American people. It certainly can be said that the land's troubled history has attracted evil. The Overlook, just like any other creature of this world, has its own wants and needs. For the Overlook, that need is to feed. When Danny enters the hotel, he meets two of the Overlook's most famous residents, the Grady twins. What makes this interaction so special is the Grady twins' action. They walk in and simply want to see Danny, or, more precisely, investigate him. It's as though the Overlook is saying hello. Of course, there is a more sinister motive here, as it is apparent that the Overlook's desire is to consume Danny's shine, through fear and eventual death, that the shine tastes better with fear. But the action of the Grady twins is not that of homicidal ghosts, of the actions of child spirits. It almost appears as if they are the Overlook itself, which is checking out what it perceives to be its most prized possession, Danny. If we take a brief look at Jack with Mr. Grady, we also get a sense that Mr. Grady is being heavily influenced by the Overlook. Inside the gold room, where Jack first meets Mr. Grady, he tells Jack his money is no good here. Order from the house, with the house literally being the Overlook. Mr. Grady is not actually in control of the situation. If we fast forward to the red bathroom, we get an admission from Mr. Grady that he does not remember being a previous caretaker. This brings to light a key question of whether Mr. Grady is actually controlling his spirit, or whether the Overlook is a puppet master controlling Mr. Grady, which it is using to manipulate Jack into murdering Danny. With this being said, the same question can be asked of all the spirits in the Overlook Hotel: the bathtub lady, the Grady twins, or Mr. Grady. They are being orchestrated in such a way as to not only cause fear, but also to destroy the actual dynamics of trust between Wendy and Jack Torrance. After all, it was the bathtub lady who strangled Danny, and it was the false blame which Wendy placed upon Jack which caused him to go on a murderous rampage. Well, that and the influence of Mr. Grady, when he explained to Jack how he had murdered his family, hinting that he should do the same. From Mr. Hannaran's conversation with Danny in the pantry, he explains that his shine was passed down to him through his grandmother. This shows us that the shine is hereditary. If we compare Jack to Wendy, It is obvious that Jack is being influenced by the hotel at a very early point by the many ghosts which are visible to him, whereas with Wendy, she is only able to see the spirits during her last night at the hotel, after she has been subjected to huge levels of terror. This shows us that Wendy does not have the shine, meaning that it was Jack who possessed the shine and passed it on to Danny. If we go back to Mr. O'Grady, we know that he murdered himself, his wife, and his 2 children, which allows us to draw a direct link between Grady's and Jack's story. It's reasonable to assume that neither Jack or Mr. Grady had the intention of going to the Overlook Hotel to murder their families. So, both must have possessed the shine in order for the Overlook to coerce them, which means Mr. O'Grady possessed the shine. This is where it gets interesting, for we now know that 4 of these characters all had shine: Mr. Grady, Dick Halloran, Jack Torrance, and of course Danny. In life, coincidences do happen, but a Stanley Kubrick movie, this is certainly not one of them. For the Overlook is a predator, hungry, and just like any predator, it hunts, where it reaches out to attract its prey. For the Overlook is calling out to those with the shine. The Overlook is able to change its appearance to how people perceive it, or more precisely, it can change how it looks. The most obvious example of this is just before Danny enters room 237, when Danny is playing in the hallway with his cars. As you can see, the lines of the carpet's pattern is expanding outwards. However, when the ball is thrown to Danny, the line on the carpet's pattern vanishes, making Danny appear much smaller and changing the dynamic to a more claustrophobic feel, causing Danny to appear much more vulnerable. Another example of this is if we take a look at the main manager's office. We can see it has a window which goes directly outside. However, just prior to this, we witness Jack Torrance walking towards the office, which is the first door on the left. Behind the office on the left-hand side, we clearly see a hallway going behind the office. The window inside the office should be showing the hallway behind it, but instead it is showing a tree. That's outside, and this is not possible, which is why it is known as the impossible window. Some could argue that Stuart Ullman overlooked this and made a mistake, but the fact that the scene started with Jack Torrance walking towards the office demonstrates that Stuart Ullman actually wanted us to see how the Overlook is able to change its appearance. With such power, the Overlook is able to distort its inhabitants' sense of reality, where they are unable to trust their own senses, which takes them one step closer to losing their sanity. Perhaps the biggest mystery of The Shining is the picture showing Jack Torrance at the Overlook on July the 4th, 1921, 49 years before Jack Torrance entered the hotel. This picture shows us that the hotel possessed the ability to sense Danny's presence even before Jack or Danny were born. It is fair to also believe that it can change a photo. It's understood that the only real way of getting to Danny was through his father Jack, so Jack was the centre of its focus. Also placing Jack in the centre of a photo would give Stuart Ullman a sense of familiarity with Jack, making him believe that Jack belonged in the Overlook. When Mr. Ullman was interviewing Jack at the beginning of the film, but discreet enough to ensure that Mr. Ullman was not quite sure where he'd seen Jack before either. This concludes our analogy of The Shining. I do hope you enjoyed the watch. I will most likely make a couple more videos on The Shining. but they'll come further down the line. If you enjoyed our content, do send a like and hit the subscribe button so you know when we release our next video, which will most likely be in about 2 weeks' time. If there are any mature movies you would like us to cover, let us know in the comment section. That's just below. But for now, it's been a pleasure to see you, and we do hope to have the pleasure of your company again soon. Goodbye for now.